This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace gives you all the tools you need to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your terms. Hey Spuds, how's it going? Welcome back to another video, first video channel. I don't know, but welcome. Either way, it's Jamie. My name is that is me. I am Jamie. Welcome to the video. I messed up my intro. I was supposed to say that first, and it completely throws me when I get one thing out of order. Anyway, hello everybody. How you doing? Thank you so much for joining me on this installment of transphobic memes. We hate the transphobic memes, but we love to laugh at them and tear them apart, and that is what we are doing today. Are you ready? Not fair. England ladies fishing team up in arms over trans participant. Over fishing? Are you serious? Not that science supports the exclusion of trans women from women's sports anyway, because they have been found to not have a biomedical advantage over cis women, and there are steps in place in elite sports for everybody, requirements that everybody needs to meet, whether they're trans or cis. So people just need to stop talking about stuff they don't know anything about. Just no, go away. But you realize nobody cares about the fairness of women's sports. That's not why they're trying to argue about trans women not being included. It's not about protecting any women. It's just about being transphobic. There's no logical, factual, scientific, reasonable, moral basis for excluding trans women from any women's space, from women's sports, from anywhere. And that is made so blindingly clear. One, when these bigots who are like, get trans women out of women's sports, then see actual injustices happening towards women and say absolutely nothing, and probably could not even tell you 3 elite women professional sports players. They don't care about women's sports. They just care about being able to exercise their bigotry muscle. And then you see stuff like this, where it's like, no trans women in women's fishing, no trans women in women's chess. And it's like the whole argument bigots have that they're trying to rely on is some kind of unfair physical advantage. But then when you put it on things like chess in particular, where it's like, where is the physical advantage? What are you trying to say by saying that trans women are not allowed in women's sports? All you're saying there is that you are a massive transphobe. That is it. Same with the fishing one. So silly, so transparent. People just want to be called what they want to be called. This isn't a trans thing. This is just a people thing. Is it too much to ask? Bruh, if being called the wrong pronouns is this upsetting to you, then you are not prepared to deal with literally anything in life. Getting called stupid is worse than getting called a pronoun you don't like. You can tell people to be more polite and decent, but if you're this bad at dealing with things in life, then you need work as well. I'm pretty sure if you met somebody and they're like, hi, my name's John, and you were like, right, I'm gonna call you Bill, I'm pretty sure that John would get very annoyed at being called Bill and would find it upsetting after a while of people literally ignoring him saying, excuse me, my name is John, not Bill. This is somebody speaking from such a place of privilege, and also somebody that probably gets more annoyed by smaller things. Like if you were getting this annoyed that you're writing a whole paragraph about how pathetic or frustrating it is that somebody does not want to get misgendered, which is a lot more than someone just using a pronoun you don't like. 0 understanding of trans people, but also you're clearly feeling upset about it. You're frustrated in some way because you have written this response. So you're saying that how can somebody get so upset about being misgendered whilst being upset that somebody's upset about being misgendered? Like, that screams much more sensitive to me that you would take the time to write this and be upset at somebody else's upset over being discriminated against. Bizarre. Someone else has replied saying, we should honestly just stop expecting people to behave exactly the way we want to behave, because that is not a realistic expectation. I think it's quite a reasonable expectation that as people interacting with other people, we would have some kind of just basic level of respect from the people we interact with. And that includes being referred to in the way that we would like to be referred to. Just like I said, take a cis person, you refer to them wrong, it's going to upset them as well, and they deserve to be called the right name and have the right pronouns used and referred to in the way that they want to be referred to, just as trans people do. There's so many things in life that people only start saying is oversensitive or problematic when trans people are asking for it. It's like puberty blockers. The ban is only for trans kids, not for cis kids. And it's like this: if it was a cis person going, I have a work colleague who will not stop using the wrong name despite me telling them that's not my name, name, nobody would be like,
oh no, you just gotta suck it up and accept it. You can't expect people to behave and speak and act in the exact way you want them to.
Everyone would be like, that's really effing weird. That is so weird that your colleague is refusing to call you the correct name. You should take this higher, go speak to HR, do something about it. But then when it comes to trans people being like, my colleague is refusing to call me by my name, oh no, suddenly that's too sensitive and the trans person is the problem and they gotta suck it up and deal with being disrespected. Look at all these situations where people are being transphobic and they're trying to say that this is a general point in life that should stand. If you dig into it and you apply that point that they're using to cis people, people wouldn't stand for it in the way they are saying you should stand for it as a trans person. It's not anything about objective, what is reasonable in life. It is just transphobia. So I think a creator who I'm not going to bother giving attention to here caused somebody to receive hate. I don't know how, I don't know what happened, but they said, person caused the most intense harassment I've ever experienced. I'm not trans, but my username makes many people assume I am. Here's a small taste of what it's like to be a trans person online, as I've had to experience it recently. And then you have some quite horrific, there is no women's rights anymore. Then a T slur and some very horrible phrasing that I'm not going to show. I'm going to cover that up. Hope you get the medical help you need before it's too late. More slurs and name calling. Wow, you're disgusting. Like, this is intense. And yeah, this is what it's like to exist as a trans person online, is you get called all sorts of horrible names and slurs, and people just think that they have a right to say some really horrible stuff to you just because you're trans. And it's bizarre and it's never nice to read, but these people would be too afraid to say this in real life. It's only ever online, and it says a lot more about them as a person. It says nothing about the trans person. All it says is they're trans and there are transphobic people in the world. But what it says about these people is they must just be like quite pathetic, really, to think that it's okay to say these things to a stranger and to spend that time. I would much rather be me than them, because they clearly need some kind of outlet from their own lives. Just popping in to let you know some news that is sad, but nowhere near as sad as these transphobic memes, and that is that my new business venture of my very real and genuine and in existence theme park, Bean World, is having to come to a close. By creating such an unbelievably amazing website using Squarespace for my bean-themed theme park, Bean World, it became so popular that everyone has already visited at least 5 times, except the transphobes. They weren't allowed in. No beans for the transphobes. So unfortunately, I need to close the theme park in order to develop some new rides to keep it fun and interesting. The beans need to be fresh. Squarespace is full of bean-brilliant, and that was not my best, features, so you know whatever your website idea, it'll be fantastic when you make it with Squarespace. This bean-themed theme park website was created using Squarespace's new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. This lets you choose from professionally created layouts and styling options to build your unique online space. Your website will be tailored to your business or website idea and optimized for every device. It also made use of Squarespace's pre-built layouts to create all the pages I need with ease, as page elements can be arranged quickly and easily to showcase your content. Add or remove blocks to create a custom look for specific purposes, including contact, about, blogs, and products. And because of Squarespace's flexibility, features, and ease in website creation, I've been able to pivot the bean-themed theme park into bean-themed merch until we're up and running again. This is all made possible because Squarespace allows you to sell custom merch from your very own website. You can design your products, and then production, inventory, and shipping are all handled for you, saving you time and money, leaving you beaning from ear to ear. Charbonne's actual Squarespace website was super easy and fun to make, and something we're really proud of. It's definitely here to stay. We use it to integrate our social media platforms, let you know a little bit about us and what we do, and share about our podcast. So whatever your website idea, if you're looking to build a community, if you're an awesome entrepreneur, if you want to set up a club or a blog or a fellow theme park with new bean rides, go for it. Then just jump on it and use Squarespace to turn any idea into a website. To get yourself started, go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Jammidodger for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The link is in the description box. Please go give that a little click. And let's get back to the transphobic memes. Oh yay. In reality, I actually support trans people, but abolition of gender is just stupid. The gender neutrality movement completely undermines the trans movement. Change my mind. But why can the two not exist? Nothing in life is binary, right? We don't say that people's sexual orientation is either 100% straight or 100% gay. There are people who fall within that spectrum all the way between it, and there are people that fall outside of it as well. There are people that are asexual. So when it comes to gender, why is it that people are so rigid on like man, woman, that's it? And then some people take it even further with their man, woman, and they conflate it with assigned birth sex as well, and that's what they base those labels off of. It's really bizarre to me because sex as well, male, female, is also not just strictly male and female. There's all kinds of things in between. And when it comes to gender, so if you can identify as a man or a woman, it makes perfect sense that, like with pretty much everything else in life, that also falls on a spectrum within and outside of. So I, as a binary trans person, do not feel undermined or invalidated by people who do not identify as a gender, or by people who identify as non-binary. Like, trans athletes, sporting events start banning trans women, trans athletes that transitioned to earn money in women's sports. You can't do this to me. You know how much I've sacrificed. Again, research that trans women do not have a biomedical advantage. Also, there are findings that cis men are not pretending to be trans women to gain access to women's spaces. This is just not happening. Like, really put yourself in the mindset of somebody actually doing this, because to compete in sports, like, you do need to hit certain requirements to fit within certain categories. A dude wouldn't just be able to walk in, do absolutely nothing, go, I'm a trans woman, let me compete with women. That is not going to happen. That does not happen. Men are not pretending to be women, let alone transitioning in any way to gain access to women's sports and spaces. This is not happening. And also, even if it were happening, that's a very separate category of people to trans women. Again, this is such a broken record. Trans women should never in any situation be penalized or scapegoated for the bad actions of predatory cis men, because that's who the real enemy is here. That's the group that people are actually afraid of, and the group that people actually need to take action against, not trans women. Trans women are just being used as some easy scapegoat to fearmonger and be like, no, this is actually who we need to be afraid of and do something about. You're just detracting from the genuine threat of predatory cis men because you are wasting time on trans women who just want to live their lives, play sports, go to the toilet, get changed, you know? It is ridiculous. When your kid actually is transgender, well, that's a really dark meme. That is a really dark meme. I'm not going to show it on screen for very long. That is so dark. I swear I've seen something like this before. Like, it's not new. All I can say to that is I really hope you don't have kids. People with this kind of attitude should not have children. If you are not willing to love your child unconditionally, regardless of whether they are gay or straight or any other sexual orientation, regardless of whether they are trans or cis, regardless of whether they have a disability or not, then you should not have a child. Children do not deserve to be brought into the world and then not loved and discarded simply because of an attribute that, one, there's nothing wrong with having, and two, they cannot control having. I think it's incredibly selfish to bring children into the world when you as a person have a really strict idea of who that child is going to be. And that goes down to not just matters of identity, but also things like expecting them to get certain grades in school, expecting them to behave in a certain way, expecting them to have a certain religion, expecting them to want to have a certain career path, expecting them to get married and have children of their own. You are bringing a new life into the world. And yes, they're probably going to learn a lot from you, but they're also going to learn a lot from their environment. And you have to be open to having a child that is nothing like you and wants to do nothing that you would expect them or want them to do. My mum always told me my parents didn't have like this predestined idea of who I would be or what I would do, because they recognized they were bringing this new human being into the world and they can raise me with their like moral values and teach me what they believe in the world, and then I can make up my own choice as I grow older. And they were also very open to the fact that I may have an identity outside of cis and straight that I cannot control, and they would still love me regardless. And I'm like, if you are not prepared to be like that with your child, please do not have children, because everybody in this world deserves to feel like they can explore who they are, be unconditionally loved, and have their identity and live freely with that. How to deal with someone telling you to use their preferred pronouns. Take this/that. Haha, so funny, let's joke about being violent towards trans people. How lovely. To be fair, it is a joke I have not seen before. And I do always say, give me some effort and originality. That one might be fairly, I'm sure it's not original, but it's original for me, but still very low effort. Haha, punch them in the face. Transgenders be like age 10. I hate girls. Age 20. Age 30. Age 300. You don't carry on aging after you die. That's just dumb. The bone structure tells us this was a male. Again, in life, like everything, not as black and white like that. No. And also, don't give a shit. And also, I want to be cremated. I'd love to be cremated and then be a tree. These are really dark. I think you're laughing about something that happens to a far greater portion of the trans community and the LGBT plus community as a whole than it does to cis straight people. But these kind of jokes are literally why it happens. Like, they seem to pretend like,
oh, it's just the fact that you're trans that means this thing is going to happen to you.
or, you know, but actually it's because of people who make these types of jokes and have this attitude. That's why this happens for trans people. That is a very big reason. The lack of access to appropriate healthcare, social discrimination and rejection, and lack of legal protections for many people. That's why mental health is poorer generally. Things like gender dysphoria. If you speak to a lot of trans people, you'll realize that the gender affirming approach is designed to help with gender dysphoria, and it does alleviate a significant amount of gender dysphoria for many trans people, and it improves well-being greatly. What then continues to have a negative impact on trans people's well-being and trans people's lives is bigots and transphobes and assholes. And it's like those transphobes are going,
Ha, because you're trans, this is gonna happen.
and it's like, actually no, because of you, because of people like you, this is happening. It's not an inherent thing to being trans. Can you remember one transgender kid when you were growing up? Me neither. I mean, I can. And it wasn't just me. Ha. This is like,
Oh my god, trans people never used to exist. Ah.
they've drawn a causation out of a correlation when in fact you can't make people trans. That is something that we know. You cannot force people. It's like, go to a cis person and be like, okay, cis man, be a woman. Choose to be a trans woman. Go on, do it. He can't. Just like if you went to a straight guy and you're like, be gay, choose it. Can't, because you can't choose your sexual orientation and your gender. You can't choose to be trans, you can't choose to be cis, you can't choose to be straight, and you can't choose to be gay, and everything in between. The reason why you can't remember trans kids when you were growing up is one, because like a lot of those kids will not even have known what trans meant. Like even me as a child, I am 31 years old, and in my childhood 20 years ago I had no idea that trans was a thing. I didn't know the word trans until I was 16, and as soon as I knew it I was like, wow, that's me. Okay, you go back even further, this is probably like a boomer meme, you go back to the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. Being a child, it was not spoken about. Like, kids are finding out now that they're trans because there's actually information out there and people can find out who they are. But that wasn't happening 20, 30, and definitely not 40, 50 years ago. Very few people actually found out. We're seeing now a lot of older people coming out as trans who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and even older, because they now finally feel like they can do that, and they have learnt the language that they didn't have 50, 60 years ago. So it's like with left-handedness. I use this graph a lot because left-handedness used to be really stigmatized, and kids who were naturally left-handed were forced to be right-handed and recorded as being right-handed. Then when we saw it, people be like, wait, why do we give a shit what hand a kid writes their schoolwork with? Don't care, just let them write with whatever hand comes naturally to them. We see this big increase in left-handedness. It's not that there used to be less left-handed kids, it's that there used to be less ability for those left-handed kids to actually just use their left hand when they were writing stuff. They were still left-handed. We're seeing the same pattern with trans people and LGBT plus people as a whole. There used to be significantly less openly trans people. That's another thing, is you probably would never know, because we didn't have social media where people could have accounts like this and have support groups and stuff, and people were not as open about LGBT plus identities back 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so there are probably trans people living in society. There are examples of trans people from like ancient history, but like photographic evidence of trans people living in like the 18 and early 1900s. So there were trans people around. It's just that trans people are now able to be trans and learn what what it means to be trans at a younger age, and therefore be like, wow, this way I'm feeling, it's because I'm trans and I have the language for that. It's not making more people trans. I think bigots just like to think they're really deep and clever when they're actually the opposite. You can put on a dress and pink lipstick, but you will always be a man. I mean, this could be seen as like ally to freedom of gender expression. Express however you want, because yeah, your gender expression does not dictate your gender. If you are a man, you can put on a dress and pink lipstick and you will still be a man. But if they are referring to trans women, very wrong, because trans women are not men. And I think that's what they are. And they just got these like stupid little smiling donuts, which I automatically hate, even though I think they're cute. And then I hate them more because I think they're cute and they've been used on this post, which makes me hate this post even more, that they've dared to use adorable little donuts that are actually quite lovable on this incredibly hateful post. Dear misogynist, put on your lipstick, your prosthetic breasts, and your teenage dress. We still see the ugly dude. Why is this just like automatic assumption of like one ugliness? But again, this is the same as the previous post, which is not surprising, is on the same account, just like,
we see you with lots of flowers.
Honestly, I wish that transphobes, just for 10 seconds, could have some self-awareness of how bizarre they are seen by everybody else. Like just how absolutely bananas their opinions are, how absolutely hateful they are seen as, and how absolutely hated they are, and how they just seem to have really miserable lives. Because if you spend your life hating on a marginalized group within society, what does that say about you? Like, get a hobby, knit, paint a wall, put up a shelf, I don't know, stare at some grass, do whatever you want, but just stop being hateful, because it's not a good look and it's very exhausting. Buy some roosters to give you eggs. Funny you should say that about roosters, because actually there are some chickens where they lay eggs, but they look and behave just like roosters. They have the big blue tail feathers, they crow, they are the dominant one in the hierarchy among hens, but they lay eggs. Like, nature is not as black and white as people would like to think it is. But okay, buy some roosters to give you eggs, buy some bulls to give you milk. You'll quickly learn why gender matters. Now see, what you're talking about is biological sex. Would we say those animals have a gender? Like a bull is a male cow, right? And a rooster is a male chicken. You wouldn't call your chicken a man. So they have just conflated sex and gender. Also forgetting the fact that within nature, we see quite a lot of examples of, like with the chickens that can lay eggs but look and behave just like roosters, sex is not black and white in the animal kingdom either. And also, intersex people and humans also exist. And then trans people can take hormones and have surgeries that change many sex characteristics. In essence, one of the only things you cannot change is your chromosomes. But can we see chromosomes? No. Do you know what my chromosomes are? No. Do I know what your chromosomes are? No. Do you know what your chromosomes are? Probably not. And I think if a lot of bigots took a genetic test, they might be surprised, because chromosomes falling outside of XXXY and people being XXXY in a way that you would expect them to be happens a lot more frequently than people expect. So the fact that we base how we treat people and refer to people on something that we cannot see, we do not know, and most people will never know about themselves, is actually ridiculous to me. It is beyond bananas, and I think if people could just understand that sex and gender are two separate things within humans, then everybody could get along a lot better. They are different concepts. For 99% of the population, they are the same thing. Cis people. For 1% of the population, the assigned sex and gender are different. Trans people, when it comes to gender, that is who that person is. Please do not disrespect it. They know themselves better than you know them. When it comes to sex, things are not black and white, and 99% of characteristics are not concrete. If you are basing how you refer to somebody on their reproductive organs or some characteristics or their hormone levels, then what about cis women with PCOS or cis women who've had to have a hysterectomy? Does that then make you categorize them as less of a woman because of that? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't go around saying, oh, you're not really a woman because you don't have a womb anymore. So why do we use that argument on trans people? It's another example of a double standard where we're holding trans people like on this high up level of like, oh, you have to do this, this, and this is what I'm expecting of you, or I'm not going to respect you, which it just means they're never going to respect you because they set completely unrealistic levels and completely illogical and unscientific things that trans people have to meet. So this is just stupid, because yes, sex and gender are not the same, and also humans are not chickens or cows. So That's a thing too. Oh my god, transphobes everywhere. Literally trans, and then it's got some brands. Let's just hide those brands. We don't need to name those brands. Basically, like supporting this is funny because actually due to Trump, several of these brands have rolled back their DEI funding, which doesn't just affect trans people but also affects trans people. Yeah, sure. And then someone said, is any amount of visibility going to be enough for them? It's not about visibility though. It's about respect and rights, and there needs to be as much visibility as possible until those respects and rights are achieved, because right now we're going backwards. So like trans people aren't just going to be quiet and be like, oh, you want to take my rights away? Okay, go for it. Here they are. No, they're going to push for more visibility and more representation to actually just be able to live as equal human beings in this world and get basic human respect from other people. I just think transphobes are too stupid to get it. And whether that's a conscious just ignorance of not wanting to be a decent human being, or just a genuine like can't be bothered to learn it for whatever reason, it just frustrates me. It's so dumb. Everything they say is so dumb. You know when some people just really need a bit of self-awareness? Transphobes. And that's it for all the transphobic memes today. Please let me know what you think down in the comments. Give the video a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to. And don't forget to go check out Squarespace. Yes, the link is in the description box. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.